warmth of light. Everyone loved the light. Then people began to fight over it. They wanted to keep it for themselves. And darkness was born in their hearts. The darkness spread, swallowing the light in many people's hearts. It covered everything, and the world disappeared. But small fragments of light survived in the hearts of children. With these fragments of light, children rebuilt the lost world. It's the world we live in now.
Over the 20 years since Kingdom Hearts 1 released in 2002, one of the mysteries that we've been waiting on, whether consciously or unconsciously, as in aware or unaware, is the heritage of Kairi. It was always established that Kairi was from another world, but in making her way to Destiny Islands, she had lost the memories of this home world of hers. It is later revealed in Kingdom Hearts 1 that she originated from Radiant Garden, but I think this has always been a lie. This is a video on Kairi and what may be a connection to the royal family. In short, I believe Kairi is the princess of not Radiant Garden, but Scala at Caelum. In Kingdom Hearts 1, when Kairi's grandmother told her and thus Sora and even us, the player, the legend of the creation of the world, we didn't know then that this event was not simply a fairy tale, but the true history waiting to be revealed. But of course, with the release of Kingdom Hearts Key, we learned that Kairi's grandmother is telling a tale of futures past and a real part of what is meant, or what it means, to not only die in this universe, but to reject that most damning force within the KH universe, the darkness itself. Sora resists this darkness in Kingdom Hearts 1, and Kairi can roam this darkness unbothered and even preserves Sora despite his own disregard for everything he believes and his will of his own, which is key to the tale Kairi's grandmother foretells. Understand, with the confirmation of everything Kairi's grandmother foretells in Kingdom Hearts 1, this creates a new proverbial connection, one that ties her and Kairi back to the nexus from which all worlds spring. See, what this confirmation has done is expose that Kairi's grandmother couldn't have possibly come from Radiant Garden. Ansem the Wise and Apprentice Xehanort already told us even back then that the power of the heart's origin, and even the very feelings within, is beyond the comprehension of all of the study that people of the worlds could ever understand. But then, Birth by Sleep and Xehanort's reports reveals that the inhabitants of Scala at Caelum do have this awareness and understanding of the heart. Understanding what happens to the heart in an almost death-like state would most definitely be out of the reach of the inhabitants of the worlds, so this would include even Radiant Garden. One revelation of the heart's true nature was enough to scare Ansem the Wise straight. So how would this information about the heart make its way to Kairi's grandmother? That's not very probable. And I can hear you now, but Mozzie, isn't it confirmed she's from Radiant Garden? No. Well, how did they get to Radiant Garden? Well, leading up to Kingdom Hearts 3, nothing has ever confirmed that Kairi is from Radiant Garden, first of all, And even if there is, and I somehow missed it, there is nothing that has ever named her the Princess of Radiant Garden. Now I know that technically Princesses of Heart don't have to be actual princesses, but the overwhelming majority have been some form of royalty. And Ansem even confirms she is a princess to Sora in Kingdom Hearts 1. So I think it's fair that she is a princess of some world somewhere, just not Radiant Garden, as Ansem is not related to her apparently, unless Nomura is going to open a can of worms where he tortured his own granddaughters, Kairi and Naminé, or Kairi via Naminé. She even resides within the castle and such in the past, which could be coincidental as she and her grandmother are within the library, nowhere of any true significance in it of itself, and Ansem is known as the Great Enlightener basically within his world. But now to travel, if Kairi originated in Scala at Caelum, then what happened to her that could potentially place her here? Well, if you remember, at the ending of Kingdom Hearts Key during the finale, we saw an old man take baby Xehanort. So we saw an old man take baby Xehanort. I think that what's going on with Kairi is very similar. She was taken by some elder to a world within the worlds. Oh, that's bullshit, you may say. But then I implore you to have a look at an interesting line no one has mentioned about Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. Ericus says that the towns in Scala at Caelum are abandoned. This is just 14 years after the old man takes baby Xehanort. So for some reason, the people in Scala at Caelum abandoned the world. Perhaps to go play their role in waiting for the advent of the Dark Seeker, the Foretellers, and the Master of Masters, and then also subsequently the hero, Sora himself, as this possibility explains the unique placement of the princess in a world like Radiant Garden, a world of the in-between, close to Ericus's own station, the Land of Departure. Then think of the name. Why is it called the Land of Departure? Is it like a hub world? Did travel used to involve the use of this world? Remember, this was how the Power of Awakening is meant to function according to Master Xehanort, using hearts to reach worlds, not using worlds or worlds' hearts to reach the hearts of people. Either way, we have established this line of thought using everything we can say for certain.
Kairi, something tells me I didn't run into her by accident.
Kairi is a princess. She's not related to the ruler of Radiant Garden. Her grandmother was very much a non-entity to supposedly be the wife or somehow related to Ansem the Wise, not to mention the age difference. In no instance has Kairi been referred to as royalty by the people in Radiant Garden. This didn't even extend to Naminé, which Ansem the Wise or Diz tormented. It is never stated in any material that Kairi is the princess of specifically Radiant Garden, but Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness, confirms that Kairi is a princess to Sora within Kingdom Hearts 1.
Kairi's a princess?
Yes. And without her power, the keyhole will remain incomplete.
This has all been one big enigma in and of itself. But then Xehanort told of a royal family in Scala at Caelum in the reports of Kingdom Hearts 3. Indeed, at this stage, these people are a bunch of non-entities themselves, with one being known of Master Ericus. Even tracing his heritage back up the tree to the originators is a task, again, in and of itself, as both Brain and Ephemera could potentially be the progenitors of this so-called royal family that Master Xehanort mentions, as Ericus looks like Brain, but Ephemera is the founder and thus immortalized in Scala at Caelum. Plus, for the first time now, Kairi is featured on a throne of her very own on the box art of Melody of Memories. So far, this representation has been preserved for Sora, and it seems to be connected to his status as we've been building and understanding and coming to put pieces together that he is a prince on the verge of becoming a king, as his relationship seems to be tied to Kingdom Hearts itself, or his presence in the universe, I should say, seems to be tied to Kingdom Hearts itself. And the special powers that Kairi possessed would be of that of the legendary weapon, as in one of the 20 fragments of light, or the 20 fragments of light and darkness, which melded with her heart through time, and it developed, the pure heart that she has. So, as she was within her mother, this piece of the legendary weapon found its way to Kairi. Then Scala at Caelum itself means stairway to heaven, and Kairi is the love interest of the young prince, which Kingdom Hearts would technically be heaven since we saw that it takes the hearts. All it seems is playing out as only destiny could have possibly ordained. But what about Kairi's grandmother? There's been two working theories at this point and at this stage. She's either Ava or she's Vor. But I don't think these two actually work as possibilities. Vor is a kid in Dark Road, and while it's true this would put her around the age of Xehanort and Ericus, but then also at Scala at Caelum the heritage line is still a blank 0. In other words, there is still room for doubt. Ericus would still need children to generate a 4-year-old girl, such as Kairi by the time of birth by sleep. Or someone around his age would need to have children to generate, once again, a 4-year-old child, while Kairi's grandmother is in her 70s. This doesn't wipe Vor off the list, it just makes it seem like it's not very likely. But what about Ava? Well, it gets a lot more interesting. Kairi's grandmother knows the legend of the One World. She knows what happens when one dies or is consumed by darkness, and she also even apparently knows the Keyblade War. She knows about Kingdom Hearts residing in the darkness, how the light within one can save them from the darkness that they fall into at the end of life. Now, do I believe she is Ava? Not really. She's been a non-entity to the story for 20 years, only serving the role of espousing to Kairi and thus Sora the aforementioned details about their world. So who is she? I think she's no one. Like, not even Kairi's grandmother even. I think she's more or less Kairi's handler. We saw this with baby Xehanort, a random old man, which we presume to be Ephemera, but there's no confirmation of it being Ephemera, takes him away. And it may be the same for Kairi. This woman took her away from Scala at Caelum during whatever caused the mass exodus mentioned by Ericus in Dark Road. But that doesn't mean Ava isn't related in some way. Remember, the darkness that escapes the Data World line has hints all over the finale that specific darkness is Master Ava, leaving her behind within the world as it was consumed and then reshaped into Scala ad Caelum. But this is where we are left as far as what the story even allows us to theorize on. But I will say, this has been yet another reason to assume that Ava is within Scala at Caelum and amongst its people. I do genuinely believe she is here. There's too many things that keep on pointing this out. Like, there's too many lines that keep on saying at the end of their thread, Ava is around in Scala at Caelum, or at least running around within the worlds. Remember, the original Kingdom Hearts 3 designs, the fox ears on the hood of Kairi's hoodie, I think this is at least establishing a very baseline connection. I assume that whoever Ava was attached to is related truly to the creation of Kairi, as in her conception, her growth within her mother, and then her birth. Down the lineage of their family, for instance, if Ava was connected to her grandparents, which this could still make Kairi's grandmother her grandmother, or even her mother, or hell, even the father. When Kairi was born, she took features of Master Ava. The rose-colored hair, which of course we don't know if Ava has rose-colored hair, but we do know that her coloration and her color palette is very rose-centric. And even her pure heart all originated from potentially Master Ava, as we have built, again, another line of thinking with information and confirmed content. We've built another line of thinking that the Foretellers are potentially pieces of the legendary weapon. And of course, to think that, you would think that this will require the rest of them to also be connected to some other royal members. So I get it. The first thing you're going to say is, well, wouldn't this theory also propose that all of the Princesses of Heart from at least Kingdom Hearts 1 are connected to all of the Foretellers? And with that, I can easily refute that argument, because no, all we need is for these characters to cease to exist. In Kingdom Hearts 3's epilogue, they speak of being summoned back. In the reports, it's stated that not that they're dead, but more or less that they need to be summoned back. This is something that requires not just a time portal like Xehanort and his many different incarnations, but the opening of Kingdom Hearts by the Dark Seeker. That was a requirement to get the Foretellers back. I think the Foretellers and their pieces, or the pieces that they had, eventually got spread out across time. And what I mean by that is that after the Darknesses were trapped within the Data World line created by the Master of Masters, and the Data World line was shut off and destroyed by the end of the world, the same thing that happened to, per se, player character and everyone else potentially also happened to the husk of the Foretellers that the Darknesses were using to be presented in their forms in the finale, in which once they were all trapped there and of course everything had vanished, they were trapped within the Darknesses themselves, who can't be destroyed without, I guess, the legendary weapon. They were trapped in basically like a trap of their own. But then the pieces of them, they may be the pieces of the legendary weapon that they may be all a part of, or that they all may carry, those pieces may have trickled out through time. And I think that what's going to happen is the way that Ava will play a role in Kairi's heritage, her lineage, her origins, as we are discussing today, is that her heart, her piece of the legendary weapon, which is melded into her heart, which is how we get a pure heart of light, comes from Ava herself. It comes from Ava connecting to someone that is connected to her lineage. So let me know what you guys think about this. This has been your boy Amazia. Don't forget to do a little A-class gaming, and everything you do, don't forget to keep it A-class. And wait just a minute. I wanted to talk about that post I had made when it came to the anniversary of Final Fantasy VII and how Sora and Scala at Caelum were used. So in that post, or in that image, Verum Rex, or Unreality Sora, is being used in that image. You know this because Unreality Sora is the one that has all of the detailing. Like, you can see his texturing is different. It's like you actually see visible threads in his texturing. I'll have a comparison of the two models from Kingdom Hearts 3 Sora as we see him through the game, and Unreality Sora. You see the difference. There's textures on Unreality Sora, and these textures are kind of smoothened and absent in the game's original version of Sora. His original model do not carry this exact same texturing. So if we can compare those, and even the Keyblade itself, where it has that more realistic look to it compared to its kind of fantasy-esque look for the original modeling, then we can indicate that yes, indeed, this is Unreality Sora. So Unreality Sora, and then we know that Sora will be traveling to Verum Rex, which is the remnants, the phantoms of Tetsuya Nomura's Versus 13 project. So it becomes meta in the sense that Sora in his Unreality version is kind of being used to celebrate Final Fantasy. But then I think there's a hidden meaning within that image. And that hidden meaning is that Verum Rex is tied to Scala at Caelum, as we have Verum Rex Sora and Scala at Caelum being present. It could just mean anything. I'm 100% aware of that. I'm just saying this could be our first hint as we march closer to March of this year that Verum Rex is connected to Scala at Caelum. If the next game is Dream Drop Distance 2, and let's say the whole story will potentially play out within the world of Verum Rex, which may be why we play in a kind of first look of the world of Verum Rex, and the whole story is going to take place in this massive map where it seems like many different prefectures, I think that's what they called, of Japan, of Tokyo, will be part of this one world. If this is the case, and of course it'll be like, instead of having multiple different worlds we'll visit, maybe we'll be visiting different prefectures in which we'll meet Yozora in one, Shinjuku, we'll meet, damn it, I can't remember. The world is with you. The world is with you. Neku and his friends. There we go. Neku and his friends in Shibuya. So we may have something play out like that, to where many different entities that have popped up over the years in Square Enix projects or products will potentially appear here in this world. And that may be the story that we have with Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance 2, or Kingdom Hearts whatever it's going to be, as again, I'm of the belief that the next game may be labeled Kingdom Hearts 4, but I don't believe that it is the very next game. I do believe that there is stuff that needs to be built up for us to reach another numeric entry, because of how numeric entries are handled versus side games, in which we establish the characters and the roles that are going to be played for numeric entries, as numeric entries resolve certain things themselves. I think if we did a numeric entry now, and with there being no subplot villains, as Yozora doesn't truly seem to be a villain, it seems that, of course, there will be something else that comes in between, as Memory of Melody didn't even touch anything about Verum Rex. I think Memory of Melody's ending really just builds up to the fact of there will be a Dream Drop Distance 2. And if you remember, at the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3, after you see the message, this leads into Kingdom Hearts 3, Sora and Riku walks through the door to light, and their positioning makes them make the Roman numeral 3. And if you look at the end of Memories of Melody, after Sora and Riku reach the final part of the song and they are on that little track, you see their Dream Eaters of all things appear with them. So there you go. I do think Dream Drop Distance will be next. Dream Drop Distance 2, I should say, will be next. And that's my theory also of Kairi. So let me go ahead and finish out the closing. Don't forget to do a little A-class. Don't forget to keep it A-class, and don't forget to do a little A-class gaming. I think I messed that up. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. And peace the heck out.